Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. While at ATX Fest this year, I spoke with Nico Tortorella. Now, you may have seen Nico as Josh on the TV Land comedy drama Younger, and we spoke about that in a separate interview. But this sit-down was specifically about his new book of poetry, All of It Is You, as well as his podcast, The Love Bomb, and polyamory and sexuality in general. Our interview occurred the day after a disruption at a panel at ATX Fest that was specifically about non-binary characters, and we discussed that in detail. We had a great chat. It ended with a hug. I'm so glad I could bring it to you. Enjoy.
It amazes me how many people don't understand the ethical bit of ethical non-monogamy and seem to feel like bisexuality or polyamory is just about cheating somehow,
right,
or something like that. And I've yet to see a poly character really on television that I've been satisfied with.
Yeah.
How has that been for you, living your life, working in this industry, and trying to watch for these better characters?
It's been interesting, that's for sure. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really watch a whole lot of television. I used to a lot more. I feel like the more work that I've been doing in like my own world on myself, in the book, and I'm writing the second one right now, and just like all the social justice work, it doesn't leave a whole lot of time to like sit down and binge television like I used to have. That being said, I know that you know, I mean, in terms of non-traditional characters and relationships, what Asia K. Dillon does on Billions, amazing. I'm so excited about Pose. I think Sense8 has done some really progressive shit. And, you know, I mean, for what it's worth, Younger and Lauren's character on the show is a positive representation of pan-poly life. But at the end of the day, there's 8 series regulars on the show, and it's a 22-minute show, and it's like the tertiary, secondary characters don't get as much screen time as Liza does, and that's just like fact.
Yeah.
I would love to see like the Lauren spinoff at some point, you know, or like I would love to play the male version of a Lauren, really, because there's been no, for the most part, positive bi dude representation anywhere. Dude, I'm using that, you know, loosely.
I've enjoyed. I've read most of the poetry book.
Nice. All of It Is You.
All of It Is You.
Yeah.
I realize you have it tattooed on you, and I'm like, let's just not
Staring
stare.
right at you.
Yes. I know that's your first book.
Yeah.
Prior to publishing, how did poetry fit into your life? Have you always written?
In one way or another, yeah. When I started the podcast, The Love Bomb, I started writing a lot heavier because I was just writing a piece for each person that came in for the given episode. But I don't know, you know, the word poetry is so multidimensional and layered, and I feel like we are all poetry, and everything that we do is poetic, the best and the worst. And I just like saw how my life mirrored the way that I write, and it was just a no-brainer for the first book. Like, let me just, I mean, quite literally throw up a bunch of material on all of it. And then moving forward with, you know, my next books, I'll have more of a chance to like dive into specific sections and unravel and unpack.
Do you have a favorite piece from the book?
It changes all the time, you know. I knew when I set out writing that book that I wanted to create a body of work that I could always go back to be inspired by. And every time I pick up the book, I see something that like is foreign to me in one way or another, and it's just so magical. That's like the practical, subtle magic in that book for me. I mean, if I were to like pick a favorite takeaway from the book, it would be the title. Like that mantra, I mean, that's really what it is, and it has shifted my entire life, how I look at everything. And it's just about this oneness, right? But like my favorite section of the book would be the universe section, because I just got into the flow. Because I started from page 1 and ended with 246 or whatever it is, and I didn't ever jump around. I just wrote all the way through.
I know you'd said in the intro that read the book however, just open to it, whatever. But then it starts from sperm and it seems like it progresses. There's almost an expectation of like
next?
Tristan Shandy style. Like, are we starting at the beginning here?
Yeah.
And moving forward. And so I kind of wondered, was there how your stream of thought went in tackling these subjects?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote out all of the piece titles first. That was like starting point. And they changed a little bit within I wrote the whole thing in 45 days, so there was not a bunch of time. Yeah. So within that week, the first week, I mapped out the entire book, and I made some subtle changes, but for the most part, I just stuck to it. And I really thought when I was going to do it, I was going to jump around and go all over the place, and but I couldn't. There was no way that I could jump around. And I was in Peru for 2 weeks, right in the middle of writing the book. And it just so happened that it was when I was in the Earth section, and it was when I was doing the plant stuff and the medicine stuff was all while I was in the jungle with shamans doing ayahuasca for a week. And just the way it all worked out is crazy.
I have a friend that takes groups of fellow veterans takes groups of vets down to Peru, 4 at a time, to kick alcoholism and PTSD issues with ayahuasca.
So amazing, the work down there. So amazing.
And having met some of the people that have come back, the change is stunning.
I literally think of my life before ayahuasca and after ayahuasca, and she has a way of, I don't know why, I just gendered ayahuasca. Everyone in the jungle genders her as she, but I am moving past that idea. So ayahuasca comes every day in one way or another, shows up.
In discussing my prep for this interview with friends of mine, I tripped up several times misgendering your pronoun.
Yeah, it happens. I do it sometimes too,
I don't know. I can just cut this entire thing if you don't want to talk about it.
No, I love talking about this.
I was sad I missed the binary panel yesterday for doing another interview.
Yeah, shit got weird.
Yeah, shit got weird. I read the Deadline article about it after. Where do you feel like we are in that conversation about this?
The gender conversation?
Yeah. I still feel like I have even close friends that we hit a point where they go, no, you either have junk or you don't. What's the question here?
Yeah.
And I find myself having these long, weird science discussions of I can show you there's plenty of science about
intersex numbers.
Yeah, and that, if you think you've never seen a trans person, you're just really not observant.
Yeah.
And when stuff like that can even happen at a convention it's pretty geared towards folks being open to discussing this.
At the non-binary panel, right?
Yeah, where you knew what you walked into.
Yeah. My heart is really heavy for that person, whoever they are. I don't really know what happened. I think that they were called out right in the beginning for being in this computer costume.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron, who was the moderator, said something am I crazy, or do we have a computer or a robot that's sitting in the audience right now? And I think it just triggered them, and it escalated. It went from 0 to 100 really, really fast. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily believe that this person is homophobic. I think that they were just in a position where they were reaching at everything that they could because they felt
just felt more cornered.
Yeah, they felt so alone in that moment, and their triggered reaction was to just go explode. And with the news of Anthony Bourdain and everything yesterday,
it was a tough day.
I just that person needs help and needs love,
mm-hmm.
right? And that's what I said when they were being dragged out of the space. Just we love you, and I hope that you find what you're looking for. And there was an argument on stage with me and Cameron. It wasn't really an argument, but Cameron's stance was no, fuck that dude. I'm sick of this. Like, no, absolutely not. I am not sending that person love. And totally valid. Like, I appreciate that. They are absolutely able to feel that way, of course. But I read this Ram Dass quote this morning, and I'm just going to pull it up real quick. Hold on.
Yeah.
What you meet in another being is the projection of your own level of evolution. And it just like hits, right? My immediate reaction, I will fuck this guy up. If he harms anybody, I will destroy him. I mean, I have like a primal force in me that will protect the people around me. But once I knew there wasn't a threat, it just like switched. It switched to love and compassion and like real deep sadness. And I'm still unpacking it right now, and I have to write a piece about it. I just have to. And the fact that he was in a fucking robot costume, like how you can't even write this.
There's so much prep that went into
Oh
that.
my god! But I don't think that this person prepped like coming to this event to do this. This was not part of the plan. There's no way it was.
Well, and I always think on shows that, you know, when you see the villain on a show or on a story, villains never think that no one's the villain in their own story.
Yeah.
They don't think they're the villain. He didn't think he was showing up to do a horrible. He thought he was showing to do something he very importantly needed to do, but I don't understand what he was wanting out of. I wonder what the resolution he thought was going to happen was.
I think he just lost it. I think that there was one point where Cameron said something to him like, "Okay, you're done talking. Like that's it, or we're going to have to ask you to leave." And in his computer voice, he went beep beep, going to sleep. And he put his head down.
And like for a minute, that might have been it.
And I thought that was it. I thought we were going to be fine. And then something happened in like 5 seconds, and he went from sleep to standing up and coming straight to the stage. And I was like, oh! And I was the first one up. Because we're in Texas.
Yeah.
Like, if that person had a gun on him, what?
Oh yeah.
What would yesterday have looked like? Really?
Oh god.
There's no vetting outside. There's no fucking security screening or anything.
No, twice I've had my bag looked, and that's it. Yeah, most of the panels, no.
I mean, and then what?
Yeah.
Wild time. Wild.
I'd read in your Playboy interview, as well as the piece about your wedding, where you guys had talked about labels not as a pinning down, but as a way to give other people a way to be in the conversation with you and then catch people up. You're a complex person in progress. Where do you start bringing someone into that conversation if they don't have a background, if they don't have any other friends, or haven't experienced a trans person, or if they don't have any friends that are comfortable saying they're bi to them?
Right.
Even where do you find you're in for talking to people about yourself?
It's so relative to the person that I'm having a conversation with. Like I would say that I have pretty good reads on people, and depending on the intention of the questioning, like why am I having this conversation in the first place? Are they interested? Do they want the education? Am I interested in having the conversation at that point? Or like, are they still working their shit and they're not going to hear anything that I say? And in which case, I will shift the conversation. But like in my fluidity, I feel like I've always had ability to almost chameleon my way through any environment. I mean, we were at the CMT Awards on, what was it, Tuesday night?
No, that was a killer outfit,
man. Oh my god, we had so much fun. And we were like, and we listened to a lot of country music. We've never like hung out with country music folk before. And we're like downstairs in the VIP, like underneath the stadium, like walking with Rascal Flatts and Little Big Town, and every single person came up to us and was like, "Hey, buddy, good to see you. How you been?" Like we had been here forever.
Yeah.
And I just had this moment, like, oh shit, you could put us anywhere, and we'll figure it out, and we'll fit in, and that's part of our privilege, obviously. But like, I think that's in essence the mirror of the book. All of it is you, right? Mm-hmm. If you, in one way or another, can find the ability to relate to the people around you, physically, emotionally, spiritually, like it'll be a safer space for everyone. Mm-hmm. And I think that I do that even on one-on-one conversations or group conversations.
Something that I've always been mindful of. privilege of I know, and I'm coming more recently to understand what I look like and how I walk in society, unintentional or not. Apologize if I think how to phrase this. I find particularly like with white guys who aren't effeminate, that the bi erasure is so easy because there was such a threat, at least growing up, the perceived threat of being gay in Northeast Texas when I was growing up was huge. The privilege you would abdicate by admitting that was just huge. Basically everything that seemed to be working in your life, you knew you would jeopardize if anybody ever thought of you as effeminate. Which creates its own societal problems and its own behaviors. Where was the line for you where you decided that it was safer and more worth it to be all you than to stick with so much privilege?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on stage, right? So I was always playing dress up and playing make believe, and I mean, I remember being so young and like doing my mom's hair and like playing with her makeup on her, and it was like totally fine. That being said, like being effeminate in my house was never like celebrated, but I was an actor, so it was okay. It was like it was part of my job to play make believe. And I think in my professional life, when I got sober from alcohol, like I really started to take myself seriously. I think that I was like your stereotypical like Hollywood party dude for a while, and I think because of a lot of the stuff that I was dealing with in terms of my own sexuality and how I fit into this like Hollywood box, I was just drinking like heavily and just numbing the pain before I knew like really how to heal it. And the second I crossed that, everything opened up. Everything.
Yeah, I caught that in your book.
Addiction.
Yeah, I wasn't going to ask particularly about your sobriety, but congratulations, man.
Thanks.
It's really great.
It's been 3.5 years now, and I'm not sober. I mean, I still smoke pot. I love psychedelics. I'm not.
I feel like pot's the dirty secret of AA a lot.
Well, but you got to be careful with it. Everything is about intention. If you are smoking pot to numb out and to not feel anything, then it's an issue. But if you're like smoking pot in like ceremonial or ritual purposes like for the purpose of expanding your mind on one specific subject or a conversation, all for it. But like it's a slippery slope, and I'm an addict, like at heart,
Yeah. I've had to watch my sleep cycles since I was a kid. If I sleep more than 8.5, 9 hours, I'm hiding. I'm straight up hiding from something. And I'll notice it. I'll realize, like, man, I'm not this tired. I didn't do enough physical stuff the last few days to be this is emotional tired. What am I trying to be asleep for instead of deal with? And,
that's beautiful.
And I feel like similarly, short of actual sleep, but people are, sedatives are the same thing. I think a lot of people numb to go to sleep but still get their shit done, sort of.
Yeah. And like I do think there's a big difference between pharmaceuticals and, natural options. I do, but
yeah, I have a lot of friends that have given up a whole lot of really scary pharmaceuticals for pot, but at the same time, like you said, their addiction's different than the drugs.
Totally.
And addictive behavior is a problem. Is a problem
in anything, in people, in food, in drugs.
Whether I'm eating, shopping, watching TV, doing drugs.
Yeah, all of it. That's gonna be maybe not my third book, but my fourth book will deal with a lot of addiction.
So what is the next book coming out? Can you talk much about it?
Should be, I want to say second quarter of next year, maybe third. It's going to just be about sexuality and gender, and where it's going to be like narrative driven, but I want to be traveling a lot and taking this conversation globally, because I feel like my queer politics are just so U.S. centric right now that I need more of an education.
It's a great thing to recognize.
That will be in the book.
my wife and I don't live together.
Oh, nice.
And a few years ago, we'd moved in together and we were having issues suddenly, like out of nowhere, and went to a couples therapist, and we basically asked another adult, like, can we move back apart and still be together? Like, can we go backwards on the game board? Is that And like an adult we were paid, like, took our hands, was like, you're grown-ups and can do anything
Whatever
you want.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how many times she had to tell us that. And then we immediately became the weirdest people any of our friends knew, because we bought a duplex and moved in each half.
Shut up.
Yeah, it was
That's
freaking great.
Genius. I love that so much.
Yeah, and so now we've basically done it again. We just recently converted a garage into the apartments. Now we have a duplex again.
Yeah.
But when I'd read your home life, your setup, and everything, and was like, I feel like all of us that grew up watching people just beat their heads against monogamous relationships and have it fail over and over and over. You got to think about what works for you.
We've been taught one thing forever.
Yeah.
White house, white couple, man, woman, white picket fence, 2.5 kids. That's it.
Yeah.
And like, finally now more stories are being told.
Yeah.
And my biggest piece of advice for anyone is keep telling your story. I just think it's visibility right now. I think that's like what the pan world, what like the gender non-conforming world really needs. It just needs like anyone who's living this way, even in the most like micro of ways, just put your story out there because we need to hear it.
Yeah.
Some people have less opportunity than others. Some people have way more opportunity, and like just to start talking about it. And if somebody needs more, figure out a way that you can help. And like me recognizing where I stand on this food chain at the top because of who I am, because of what I look like, because of the color of my skin, like I am a person that can, in one way or another, I think, help the rest. And that's like, once I realize that, it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
What else
am I supposed to spin this on?
That's it. This is what I'm here. You know?
Thank you so much
Thank you
for your time today, Nico.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Electric Sweater Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener-supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter @TV Dudes. All the music for our show is by our friend and original TV dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and electricsweater.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.